views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
Welcome to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and with me, as always,
Eric Olson.
Hey, you know what? It's Eric $600,000 on Twitter man, Olson.
Yeah, you know, I got the cash, except it's Monopoly money.
Now, you got to tell everybody how you figured out that your Twitter, which is quite large, if I do say so myself, is worth 600,000 mythical dollars.
Okay, so there's various services. I'm not sure how they make money. Maybe they don't.
It's charity.
And what they do is they just run an algorithm on your account, and I'm sure it takes into account your number of followers, number of tweets, retweets, etc., etc., etc. And I've seen them for all the various social media. I'm sure they have it for Facebook and whatnot. But of course, for me, Twitter is by far my biggest and most active account. And that's the America's Most Haunted, which the handle of which is at AM Haunted. So you plug all this info in, and it spat back out that the account was worth $590-some thousand.
Wow.
Of course, the reality is, if you stop and think about it, it's only worth anything if someone is willing to pay for it. And why would someone want to buy my America's Most Haunted account? Unless, of course, they wanted to become America's Most Haunted, but then it wouldn't be me. So I'm not really sure how it would transfer, if you see what I mean. It's not really like a website. Like, for example, my first site, my big site, the one I started and eventually sold to Technorati, blogcritics.org, which still exists. The thing that was valuable about that is that we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, in fact, eventually even a couple thousand writers. So it's not as if it were dependent on me personally to function. Sure, I built it up and I founded it and I was the publisher and the editor and, you know, for the first several years, by far the most prolific writer. But once it got going and became a well-established group site with 50, 60 posts every single day, then, you know, my role became much less important in terms of the value of the site. So that's why that did have value, and I was able to sell it. But even under those circumstances, part of the deal was I had to run it. I had to be an employee of the company that bought it from me for 2 years. So even when there was perceived value kind of apart from me, it was still important enough to them that I had to be involved for 2 years. So I'm kind of comparing that with this Twitter thing. And frankly, sadly, there's no comparison.
So the Twitter,
I could use $600,000 right about now.
Who couldn't? But Twitter, now the Twitter thing has more sentimental value than real world value, is what you're saying then. It's more of a marketing tool to get the word out about America's Most Haunted than it is actually functionally worth money.
Exactly. And
Okay.
that's a very good point, actually, Joel. The other element, obviously, of the website is you can actually generate income directly from it by selling advertising, being an affiliate, all the various ways that websites make money. Whereas a Twitter account, as you say, exactly, it is a marketing tool. It is very difficult, if not impossible, to directly make money. I mean, you can tell things, you can tell your followers, you can tell the public that you have something for sale or that you have a service. Obviously, we used it when we were promoting the America's Most Haunted book.
Sure.
And used it, all the time. And I have no doubt that it certainly helped spread the word, and I'm sure it helped sell books. But even that was really indirect because it's not like you can sell advertising.
No, I wish you could, though. That'd be great.
I wish I could,
That'd
too.
be awesome. But speaking of Twitter, did you hear that LeBron James' Twitter is evidently worth more than anyone else's because one tweet from King James is worth $139,474.
That is
American money.
remarkable. Yeah, I mean, what it is, it's a combination of just pure numbers, his reach, and his account's big, but it's not like Katy Perry, who's got 70 million.
Yeah, but how does he make that kind of money? Is it the
He
retweets?
isn't
What?
really making that kind of money.
I mean, that's what says people
They're
paid
saying
that.
the value of each of his tweets is that. It's another speculative kind of thing. In other words, they're saying the influence that he wields can generate that kind of income somehow, some way, because he is who he is. You couldn't even extrapolate the numbers. In other words, you couldn't take his account, pull him out of it, and have those numbers. So the number of followers, the number of retweets, the number of favorites, like they did for me. You couldn't do it with him because it's purely about him and his personal clout and his personal influence. Even more so, much, 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 much more so than my account is about me.
Sure.
Because at least my account has a different name. At least it has a brand name. America's
True.
Most Haunted.
Very, very
Whereas
true.
He is the brand, and
Well,
he just
yeah.
has that kind of clout.
Well, like my Twitter is just my name, basically. After Hours AM, Joelster. Just that's me. You talk, you get me. But there's a slime ball out there, and he has nothing to do with sandwiches, by the way, because I'm going to steer clear from that because I think that's been beaten to a pulp.
It's sick. Sick.
After website hacked, evidently there is a website out there called Ashley Madison where you can, yes, if you're married, you can have intimate encounters under the radar or on the down low, as the kids say. Well, evidently this account has been hacked. This website was hacked, and Josh Duggar, yes, that Josh Duggar of the TV show 19 Kids and Counting, it's been revealed that, yes, he is a philanderer.
Good God, hard to believe, not. That show was canceled. The rug was pulled out from under it. The entire ethos of that show is it is our duty to God to have all these damn kids, 19 freaking kids.
I know, I can't even handle the ones I have, and I don't even
Oh my God.
I mean,
imagine
my gosh.
in this day and age,
Oh.
19 kids.
Oh.
So the whole foundation of the show is religion, right?
Yes.
And this very specific
Exactly.
religion that is proposed by the parents and that they ascribe to, right? And that the kids all at least pay lip service to,
Yep.
right? And the bottom line is it's utter hypocrisy.
It is, and the guy looks like he should be a used car salesman, to be honest with you. And his wife, they show a shot here, is a good-looking gal. She really is. I mean, barring
like the duck people.
barring the fact that she's
clowns. Look at those duck clowns. Would they have those women if they didn't have that show and didn't make the money?
Well, that is true. I mean, barring the fact that
ducks,
you're killing.
they're damn ducks.
I just had remember that show, that movie, whatever Duck, Howard the Duck, and I just had that flash through my
Howard,
head.
duck.
Exactly.
These guys make duck decoys and calls and whatever.
Duck
I've
Dynasty.
never watched it. But
Yes.
I know what they look like, and I know who they are, and they're retards. No, we can't say that. They
No,
are.
don't go
they
there.
are not of the philosophy that I would ascribe to, and I don't think they're all that American, frankly, because it's a very narrow worldview.
Well,
Anyway,
it
my
is.
point was, there's a lot of hot women hanging around these clowns. And I mean, look, let's face it, fame and money are grand attractors.
Well, they are, and I'm just saying.
Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the next story here in a minute, Mr. Trump, with his running of the mouth, so to speak. But what I'm trying to say is this Duggar's wife doesn't look too bad after having 19 children. I mean, come on, she's kept herself in good shape.
I used to go. There was a bar when I lived in California. The second time in the '80s, when I was back in California, there's a bar in Santa Monica. It was called the Fox Inn, and those of you who are slightly older will remember because he was on the Man Show. Remember? He was the guy.
Yes.
He's the guy who wore that hat and he played the piano and he sang his really, really raunchy, disgusting, yet amazingly hilarious songs. So this guy owned his own bar and he was the entertainment there. And he would, on the weekends, at least, I think it was just weekends, he would come and perform, right, at his own place. He's playing the piano, he's singing his songs. And he had one song. He had one about the little old woman who lived in a shoe. And of course, I can't repeat it.
I know what you're talking about. I've heard that.
Little
limerick.
old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many kids. Her
something fell out. Yes.
Yeah.
I know the limerick very well.
Man, for this woman to still be
yes
anything to have working parts is astonishing.
Well, medical science, man. Medical science. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, she's not even Amish.
No, she's not even Amish, but that's all right. It's all right.
the
But
Amish
speaking of Donald Trump, now he would like to go ahead. Now, according to the news, according to Fox News, this is coming from, and I'm going to just kind of give you the cliff notes, is what he'd like to do is take away the anchor baby option. Make it a Constitution amendment, because that's what it would take, basically, for anyone that's listening. If right now, if an illegal comes to our shores, it could be 10 feet over the border, and she could give birth. And her child, currently, under the current law, is 100% American citizen. As American as you are. He would like to take away that option, to take away the anchor baby. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, first of all, I have to say, because you and I discussed Mr. Trump last week on the show, our sneak return visit, as we eased our way back onto the airwaves last week.
Yep.
And we talked about him, and at that point, which is, I mean, it's only a week ago, he really was, as far as I was concerned anyway, just still basically a joke. And I gotta tell you, in the last week, he is starting to look more dangerous. The longer he hangs around, and certainly the more women who get behind him, because, the women should not be backing him, as far as I'm concerned, given a number of his policies.
I would think they'd be running with their hair on fire.
He is starting to take on a little more stature. And part of what has caused that is by bringing forth actual immigration policies, not just generalities.
Sure.
Not just sound bites, but he put forth actual policies, and he really has begun a debate as to this specific question. I believe it's the 14th Amendment. There are aspects of it that perhaps, although I don't know how, we would be better off modifying. But again, you're talking about it is very, very difficult to modify, or certainly to repeal, a constitutional amendment.
Well,
when you put it the way you did, that someone can literally just drop their load just across the border.
Their load.
Yeah.
Make it sound like unloading the truck. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, we're 10 feet over. Go ahead, drop her down.
Welcome to the world, Jose. Now we're being bad now. Anyway, the bottom line is that does happen, but it doesn't happen in such numbers that it doesn't negate the importance of it. What I heard that is just absolutely was like a ray of sunshine, I think it was just last night or the night before, CNN. I was watching Don Lemon, he makes mistakes. He has
Sure.
slip ups. He says some weird things, but I think he's turned into an excellent journalist, newscaster. I mean, I like him a lot. And between Anderson and Don Lemon, man, they have a pretty tight evening.
They do.
Of news and opinion. Anyway, he had on a guy. I forget his name. I remember his first name, Raj, and he had been a contestant on The Apprentice and had worked for Trump in that manner. He is a Republican, and in fact, he had run for Congress about 10 years ago. So he's not just some random guy. Mm-hmm. He has particular insight into both being a GOP candidate and into Trump himself. And he said that he is absolutely 180 degrees diametrically opposed to this Trump, this nativist, this xenophobic, this lock the doors and roll up the carpets worldview, because that is not America. America is welcoming. It is opening. It is about tearing down walls.
Well, we're the melting pot. That's what we were told for years.
We are the melting pot. And, we are, bring us your ragged and your weary and your Emma Lazaruses and all that. And that is our absolute identity from the beginning, from even before we were a nation. We were already a melting pot.
Yes.
From colonial days. And for us, it just doesn't work. And he made an excellent point. The nations or the civilizations that have built the most impenetrable walls have all fallen from within, have all decayed from within, most recent of which, of course, the Berlin Wall. And you can go all the way back to the Great Wall of China. These civilizations that wall themselves in, that put up barriers and isolate themselves from the world, have all rotted from within.
Well, that's very true. And if we continue, or if we stop accepting immigrants, we lose our identity of being the land of the free and the land of opportunity.
Exactly. And not only that, that's philosophical, which is, of course, extraordinarily important. But on a purely practical basis, we lose as well. We gain far more from immigration, even illegal immigration. We gain far more on a purely practical basis, on an economic basis, than we lose.
Very true. Because it is true, the immigrants, illegal ones especially, the Mexican, and I don't want to stereotype here because everyone views them as being, sharecroppers or doing this, but really they do take the jobs we don't want. I mean, do you really want to pay $20 for a head of lettuce?
You're absolutely right. And if our system, if our economic system really wanted to shut out illegals, they could do it. But they don't want to because, again, we gain. And
it's the same reason, Eric.
Do not want to work that hard, that cheaply.
It's the same argument. I know it's really reaching. Can be taken for guns. Do you want to know why the government has never taken away our guns? Because it's part of what keeps us free. I mean,
sure.
If you're an invading army,
Constitution.
Well,
as well.
Well, of course, but barring the Constitution. But if you're an invading army, would you want to face 100 million peed off gun owners?
That's a good point. I am personally, I am not nearly as pro-gun. I am pro-freedom, pro-liberty, though. And I think I am someone who thinks it is okay, and probably in this day and age, and if you look at all the other developed countries of the world, I think it's okay to have restrictions on guns, and I think it's okay to set limitations. I don't think it's all or nothing. But I do agree that some form of citizen self-arming is absolutely part of the foundation of the nation. I don't know if citizens need to have rocket launchers.
Well, full disclosure, and I'll share this with you, I am a gun owner.
You and many millions of others.
And I grew up here in the Midwest, northern Minnesota, where it's a culture, especially deer hunting. When
Of
deer,
course,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's just a gun culture.
Well,
And-
hunting is, whether I am personally am a hunter or not, hunting is a 100% legitimate use of firearms. There's no question about it. Look, if you're a meat eater, then how can you say hunting is not a legitimate activity? It is.
But yet they'll chew on their
whatever,
steak.
communing with nature and whatnot. I mean, if you're going to eat meat, then there's lots of times I feel kind of bad about being a meat eater because I am. I'm not a vegetarian. But I have never, ever, ever, ever in my entire life, I have never killed something and then eaten it other than fish.
Okay.
I've gone fishing many times, but
Sure.
I've never hunted. I've never killed anything and then eaten it.
Sure.
And I'm missing. It is not legitimate morally, entirely anyway, for me to eat meat and to have never had that experience. In other words, I'm relying on others
To do your dirty
my
work.
cooking for me, right? My dirty work.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
Well,
recognize that. I freely recognize that.
it's the same people though that because I am a hunter, that will sit there and eat their steak and not know where their steak came from, and the second they find out how horribly these animals are treated before they're killed. I would much rather be a hunter personally and take a free wild animal that something that's been really grass fed its entire life with none of these antibiotics that they're now coming to find out that are really harming us. They're doing a horrible disservice to us because they're just pumping these animals full of antibiotics, and it's creating superbugs as we speak. All because so they can fatten them up so we can eat them.
You're right. Morally, I have absolutely no argument that hunting is legitimate. It is the most, I think, moral activity for meat eaters in terms of how your food is prepared anyway. And I think some of the popularity, I'll tell you what, my eyes have been opened. My wife and I watch some of the survival shows, especially
the History
Naked
Channel.
and Afraid,
Oh,
because
Naked and
it's so
Afraid.
bizarre and elemental. But they really do get down to the bare bones of life.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you have to sustain yourself, and either you're going to be a vegetarian. I've only seen one, and right now they're doing this XL. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Yeah, I have. It's a weird show. They have these
Isn't that
different
bizarre?
tribes.
And there's one woman who is trying to remain a vegetarian through the experience, through 40 days, which is, oh my God, imagine it. But none of the rest of them are. All the rest of them are meat eaters. And so, you are seeing what they go through in order to, and how hard it is. Certainly when
it's
you're
crazy.
when you're naked and unarmed, other than with a knife or a machete or whatever. Certainly no firearms.
Well,
and you're seeing what it's like to live that close to the edge.
Well,
right? And it's not that long ago that all of mankind lived that way. That's the appeal of farming. There's a lot of things they're finding out now, a lot of archaeological things and biological things that they're finding out that in some ways mankind went into decline, and mostly it's actually a physical strength and of not just muscles but bones and whatnot. Sure. Went into decline once farming began. But look at the appeal of farming. Mm-hmm. You're no longer living literally from meal to meal and having to stalk and kill in the wild, which is, let's face it, it's hard.
It's not easy. It is not easy. Personally, if I had to survive, I think I'd be surviving just fine. If it came down to that, because I am a woodsman and I am a hunter, and so I really have no fear of that, to be honest with you, Eric. It's the people in the inner cities that would be the biggest sufferers if something did happen, and let's just say the grid fell tomorrow, and I don't believe in that crap. I'm not prepper. I'm not the kind of person that's going, oh my God, it's all going to fall tomorrow. No, but if it happened to, I would be much better equipped to deal with it than your average citizen.
Sure. Anyone who is in a more rural setting, anyone who's in a culture of hunting and fishing and being an outdoors person. I mean, you have to admire those who aren't, and basically I'm not. I mean, I'd like to think I'm something of an outdoors person, and I certainly have fished many times. I like fishing. Fishing's fun. I have no problem with dealing with the cleaning and the preparation of a fish, but I know that I would feel differently about a mammal. It's just it's ingrained, I guess. I know it would be more difficult for me. Plus, I simply don't have the skills. I don't shoot. I'm not a bowman or anything like that. So yeah, it would be quite difficult for me. I'd
Well,
like
you
to
come on up here, Eric.
adapt and figure it out, but I am a lifelong suburbanite, and that's what I am, and I admit it.
You come up where I am, I'll put a 30-06 in your hand, and we'll do some whitetail hunting.
I don't know.
Come on, give it a try.
Man, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it when the time would come.
But
it's interesting. Because you'd think by the time you get to be my age, more than halfway, probably well more than halfway down the path, that I would know myself. But there are things I do not know yet about myself.
Well, hey, you got to at least try it one time in your life. I tell that to everybody. Give it one try, one time, because that's really who we are in the end, as hunters.
Sure.
Sure.
But if you're a meat eater, you're a hunter.
But moving on, I had a weird thing happen to me this week, and then we'll get to, of course, America's Most Haunted News. This happened in a big box store, the biggest big box store chain that we have in the country. So, starts at W, ends with a T this week. Have you ever used one of those stupid self-checkout deals?
Oh, yes.
Where you go up there. Well, see, we have a self-checkout in the store I was in, and I was using it to get a few items. And the people that work this said self-checkout, they stand, and especially this one lady, stands so close. I mean, so close that you can feel the breath in the back of her, of your own neck. You can feel her. Which annoys the hell out. I don't know if it annoys you or not when people stand that close, but it annoys me.
Well, yeah, sure. I think it annoys.
This is like the 10th.
Everyone, because it's so contrary.
Yeah. I mean,
our social norms, right?
I mean,
that's something that is so ingrained. Is you do not impinge on people's space.
I swear to God,
don't know.
I swear to God, I felt the tip of her nose in the back of my neck. Okay. So this is like
the overzealous.
Yeah, fifth or sixth time this has happened, and I'm thinking, God, I can't do this. Come on. So I really think quick. I take a risk, and I'm a happily married man. But I turned to her and I said, "Hey, baby, your place or mine?" Oh, boy, did she run away so fast! So if you guys are ever in any of those stores that self-checkout where they are standing that close to you, try that line. See what happens. Now remember, it's a risk that you're taking. They might just say, "Oh, right, big boy, it's my place." But but it's a risk. But this happened to pan out because she ran away blushing and she never bothered me again.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It seems to be specific people who are trained to supervise that department. Usually, when I go in, what's happened now? Ours is relatively new. I'd say we've had the self checkout for maybe. I don't think 6 months. It's been a few months. So originally, early on, when people were afraid of it and didn't want to deal with it, it was great.
There is some fear. There's some fear doing the self-checkout.
Breeze right through, but now it's been around long enough, so everyone's doing it. So now there's no advantage anymore.
No. There is no advantage. But really, what gets me though is, see, now I'm going to go up to every worker I can find in said store and stand very uncomfortably close and ask stupid questions. That's what I'm going to do now. Just right up next to them. Like,
that is a cultural norm. It's a very ingrained cultural norm. But there are cultures where it is absolutely normal to get absolutely up in people's grills and people don't think anything of it. They won't look at you. That's very Asian. So, and in particular, it's very Japanese because you have 100 and some odd million people. I don't know what they're up to now. Maybe they're up to 200 million. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look. But somewhere between 100 and 200 million in a country approximately the size of California.
Yes.
And much of the country is just, it's mountainous. It's unlivable.
Sure.
So
I mean,
even
I get
smaller
that.
than that. And they're islands. So it's not even, conterminous. So they if you're in Tokyo, I mean, you are absolutely jammed
Sure.
in. And the way that people handle it is they just don't look at each other. You don't make eye contact.
No,
You just
they
pretend they're
don't.
not-
But man, these people are just over aggressive sometimes in their job. And I get they have a job to do, but come on. Don't be breathing down my neck.
Enough's enough. All they're doing, all they're supposed to be doing is making sure you're not stealing anything. I don't see how you could with that
No.
automated voice going, unexpected item, unexpected item, unexpected item.
It goes crazy. It does. It goes, got the unexpected item there. Then it rings the bell. Ding, 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 ding. What the hell? I just want to go. I just want to leave. Here, I'll just pay what I need to pay. Let me leave without harassing me.
It was cool when I'm the only one in there and I am breezing on through while there's a line of 20 people in the regular checkout stand.
Exactly. But
now the bloom is off the rose. I'm already
all
back
done.
to standing in line because
Yep.
it's faster.
It is faster. We got to go to break, everybody. When we come back, America's Most Haunted News coming right at you.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed,
630 to 90, 10-4.
Order in the corner.
could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's a shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
This is the latest disclosure in a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington. It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and of course, with me again is
Eric Olson.
Oh, Eric, when we were leaving, we were talking about all that Walmart stuff, and a couple of responses came through. Too bad they don't make it. This is Jennifer Jennifer Welch, rather, says they should make a taser suit that you can wear. So when people get too close, it automatically gives them a shock. First offense is a small jolt. Second offense is noticeable. Third is put them on the ground.
I like it.
I like that. I think hopefully maybe NASA or someone will come up with something like that.
It's a wearable. That's one of the big buzz terms. It's a wearable.
It's a wearable. Come on, man.
Put it on. It's a wearable.
We got some really cool news over there, America's Most Haunted. And everybody, go over at Twitter at AM Haunted. It's twitter.com/amhaunted.com. Just go ahead, hang out with us, read with us, have a good time.
Follow along.
That's
at
right.
Home.
Be a part of us.
Well, first of all, this is a big birthday day. Some very significant in the paranormal/horror world. Most important, of course, H.P. Lovecraft, who literally invented, essentially, horror fiction. At least took it way farther than it had been taken before.
It wasn't the weird dude that
created this whole world, the Cthulhu mythos.
It wasn't the weird dude that made the Scientology, was it? I thought he was like one of the first.
No, he came along later.
Oh, okay.
And then, created a religion and whatnot.
Well, yeah, he did that too.
This is good old H.P. Lovecraft, and he was born 125 years ago today. So you have that, but not only that, but in celebration of his birthday, this very weekend, his hometown of Providence, Rhode Island, is having I always get this wrong, Necronomicon, and in his honor. And
isn't that from the Evil Dead, the Necronomicon?
Yes.
Okay.
But they got it from Lovecraft.
Gotcha. They ripped it off.
Yeah, they did. So anyway, it's his 125th, and all weekend, if you're anywhere near Providence, and if you are a horror fiction aficionado, this event is going on, and there's all kinds of activities and movies and panels and whatnot. It is a gathering of the tribes this weekend in Providence, Rhode Island. Every time I see his face, H.P. Lovecraft, it looks like he's biting his lower lip.
I know he looks mad. Look at him. He looks like my principal.
He also looks constipated.
He does. There's medication now, HP. Go ahead. Take it.
He's 125. He should have figured that out by now.
You'd think so, but yeah, he has a striking resemblance to my high school principal.
He's kind of skeletal looking.
Scary, man. He's a scary dude.
Yeah, what's come out in as always, in later years, there was a story in Salon, I don't know, a couple of years ago, talking about his racism, and I haven't delved into it far enough to know if he was more racist than average, given the fact that he was born 125 years ago, but it's something to take into account. And it's really hard to go back in history and decide where someone fits on the scale for their time. Are there absolutes? Sure there are. There were certainly people in the United States, or what is now the United States, from day one who were against slavery.
That is true.
There were people who were from day one. There were, no question about it. But you have to at least take into account a little bit the historical norms. But that's a side issue. The other big birthday today is my bud, Misha Collins, who plays, of course, Castiel on Supernatural. The great Supernatural on the CW, which is going into now, this is unbelievable, its 11th
Wow,
season.
It's been around a long time.
11th season will come up in October on the CW. And, of course, it's the Winchester boys.
Yes.
And the two stars, man, they have become enormous stars just from that show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a good show, too. I mean, that's really what it
Jensen
is.
Ackles, Jared Padalecki, man, they have it made for life.
They
if
do.
They didn't do anything else.
They do, but everybody thought Buffy the Vampire Slayer had it made too. But just saying.
That's true. You're right. That's a good point.
You know.
But it didn't make it 11 years.
No, it didn't. But remember, everybody was all over that Jennifer Love Hewitt forever. Oh, Buffy. Oh, we love Buffy. Yeah, then something else came out and done with Buffy.
Sure. Well, it ran its course. And what's interesting is with Supernatural, I mean, a lot of it's due to the format where there's two aspects, which was the way it was with the X-Files too. And that you have the standalone episodes where you don't really have to know a whole lot about the mythology. And then you have that arc that's going over the entire show, the canon, as it were. And so the fact that you have these two aspects to it mean you can go on maybe forever.
Exactly. And I hear that the X-Files is coming back to TV.
It is. I'm very, very excited. It's only a 6-show run. I think it's only 6 episodes. But man, they got everyone back. I mean, if you were a significant player at any point in that show's, what was that? That was another.
Oh, it was on for a lot, like 9 seasons. It did.
I think it was 9 at least. Yeah, you're at least. Yeah. And the last 2, of course, it was fading.
It was weird, yeah.
But nonetheless, it lasted a long time. It was extremely successful. It's a beloved show. But, I mean, if you were on it any time, if you were a significant character, they are bringing you back.
So, actually, Dana Duchovny, he's coming back?
David Duchovny, absolutely.
Good. And then Scully, I always thought she was a hot low number back then.
Oh, she's hotter now.
Oh, no.
She's thinner and blonder.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to be watching that show. And then, for your TV watching, they have Fear the Walking Dead coming up.
And that's coming up Sunday. And I think people were very skeptical. That's another short run. I think that one's only maybe 8 episodes. And then they're going to try it out. But they've already renewed it before the very first episode for a second season. But yeah, it's a spin-off, and it's a spin-off really kind of a name only, because none of the characters are repeated. The location is not repeated. Mm-hmm. What they're doing is they're taking that absolute beginning, which we skipped over with Rick being in the coma.
Sure.
On The Walking Dead. So that period where Rick was in the coma in Atlanta, Fear the Walking Dead is set in Los Angeles, and we're seeing the very, very, very beginning of the outbreak. So it's really kind of a whole different show. And all you got to know, to see the difference, all you have to do is look at the zombies. Mm-hmm. The zombies in this one, in Fear the Walking Dead, are almost human-looking. Mm-hmm. The only way you can really tell, besides the fact that
they want to eat you,
they're dead and they want to eat you, is cloudy eyes.
Uh-huh. Well, I was kind of hoping, of course, to take it from the beginning. I was hoping to go during that same time period and show you what it was like for other parts of the country during the outbreak, even during their time. Kind of take you right through it, what it was like in Los Angeles or New York or Cleveland.
Cleveland!
That's why I was kind of hoping, that it would be more of a, this is what else is happening in the world while this whole plague is going down.
No, this is really kind of, I mean, it's the same universe. It's the same zombie apocalypse, but it's only Los Angeles. It's a whole different set of characters, and they are focusing on this extended family and what happens to them. And, they're saying it's actually more of a family drama than it is a zombie show.
Oh, that's a killer. I want a zombie show.
Well,
that's why I watched The Walking Dead.
Zombies. Apparently this first episode, which I haven't seen yet, and it will premiere Sunday, this first one takes a while to get going, and it's 90 minutes as opposed to the usual hour.
Sure.
So I'm sure that extra 30 minutes is part of it. But you're getting to know the characters. The reviews I'm hearing, or the previews, are saying, but by the end of it, the tension is ratcheted up and things are going on.
Yeah, well, it has to do that.
You're back to being a zombie show.
Well, that's why people watch The Walking Dead, to be quite honest with you. They don't watch it for the family drama element. They want to see blood, baby. Come on, let's just be honest.
Well, there's always plenty of that. But the characters, I mean, look how influential and how important those characters are. Look at Norman Reedus, who now, I mean, I had vaguely heard of him. I had seen the Boondock Saints.
Yeah, so did I. He was in Blade.
I vaguely knew who he was, right? But he has become such an enormous star through The Walking Dead. He does Ask Norman on Twitter, and he's got almost 2 million followers. And, I mean, he gets thousands of questions whenever he does that. He can only answer a handful of it. But he's become this enormous star, such a star that it is just common wisdom now. They can't kill him off or there will be rioting in the streets.
Every tween and young teenage girl will take up arms.
Rioting in the streets.
It'll be nothing but braces and hair gel coming at you.
So, yeah, the problem is, or what the fear is now, is he's become such a huge star. And, while this is the top-rated, most-watched show in cable history, it is still cable. And I'm guessing the pay scale, although I'm sure they have gotten big raises over the years, but, they're still on the cable pay scale. So the fear now among fans is he's become so big that he's going to want to do a network show. And, of course, to do a network show, he'd have to leave.
Well, no offense to Norman Reedus, but he's no Robert De Niro in his acting skills.
Well, he's a certain kind of actor. He has a certain, let's face it, he basically plays a version of himself.
Yes.
And he's that guy, and he does that well. I haven't seen him do a whole lot of other stuff. But on the other hand, to be fair, that character has certainly grown. And last year, when he had the relationship with the much younger woman, the sister, the one who was killed.
Yeah.
He showed a lot of depth that I don't think people were necessarily. Emily Kinney, the actress, and
she was so cute too. By the way, in that
so
role.
cute. And by the way, she is not nearly as young as she looks. She's almost 30.
Wow, I did not. I was thinking she was more like 22, 23 years old, darn near 30. Well,
it's just a young.
Compared to me, she's very, very young.
But anyway, the relationship that they had, I think, really kind of opened a lot of eyes. Because there was some sensitivity to it, and there was some depth to it, and it wasn't a one-dimensional relationship. It never ended up being a romantic relationship, but it was something very close to that.
Now,
maybe in some ways deeper than a romantic relationship.
Do you think, though, that NBC, because that's who owns AMC, do you think they will mainstream The Walking Dead to be an NBC show?
No, I don't think so, because it would lose too much.
Okay, because, I mean, that would be smart, making an actual network show.
People are so used to seeing a cable show and what you can do on cable that you still, to this day, can't really do yet on network.
That good point. Good point.
It would be narrowed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember, this is based on a horror comic, and the show is a horror comic.
I used to read The Walking Dead, the comic, and it's followed very closely. So if they keep following the storyline of The Walking Dead, the comic, because I used to be a big reader of that, eventually, well, he does get killed.
Well, everyone does.
If you want to follow the storyline.
They have followed it closely, but they have also deviated. So, and they've done composite characters, I guess. I'm not speaking from having read the comic, just reading about the comic and reading about the comparisons. But incidentally, regarding The Walking Dead, very interesting, just to show how much things have changed. The Hollywood Reporter, and this is a tweet, so you can go check that out. The Hollywood Reporter did a really cool interview with 25, think how many that is, current and former Walking Dead stars as to their auditions and their early thoughts. Basically, none of them thought it was going to go.
Yeah, that everyone kind of thought
wouldn't make it past, one season.
Yep.
They just didn't get it. They didn't understand it. And it's fun to see. Some of them tried out for very different roles from the ones that they got, for example. And so go check that out. It's in the Hollywood Reporter. 25 current and former Walking Dead stars talk about how they got on the show in the first place.
Very, very interesting, because you're right. No one thought the show would go anywhere. In fact, the creators of the show were skeptical that it'd go anywhere at all.
Yeah, I mean, it broke a lot of rules, but hey, that's the biggest hits. The real game changers break the rules. They make new rules.
That's what makes them stand out, is breaking those rules.
It's still, to this day, sure, you can look back and it's all, being a Monday morning quarterback is always much easier, and you can point out the elements that have made it be the cultural phenomenon that it has, but there's still no way that it makes sense.
No.
That this frickin' zombie show is the most watched cable program in history.
No, it makes no sense.
Doesn't make any sense. Let's face it.
No, it's even better than. I mean, heck, it's got more viewers than the original Twilight Zone did.
It has more viewers than many, if not most, broadcast shows.
Exactly. But moving along, I see this tweet you put on there. When your house hates you.
I was just going to go to that. How did you know? Because we got Norman. We got Norman with his Daryl Dixon phone cover.
We do.
I love it. This is a great story. I didn't know anything about this site. I really want to talk up this site. It's called The Atavist. And what they do is they only publish, get this, one story a month.
That's it, huh?
But it is a long, very well researched, lavishly illustrated, lovingly compiled article. And I mean, it's amazing stuff. It's long form stuff. It's kind of like a really top-notch New Yorker article, but with art. Because for whatever reason, of course, the New Yorker never has pictures.
No, the New Yorker never does.
Always just text, which I've never understood, never will understand. I know it's important to them, but yeah, all they have are their comics, their individual comics, and I mean, and ads. I mean, there are no pictures. There's like a header picture for each story, but that's it. Anyway, so this one, it's amazing, and what it does is it kind of traces the whole history of haunted locations, stigmatized property being the technical term, and what is the law. And the law right now is very, very fluid, and it depends on the state, and it depends on the court's interpretation. In other words, do you have to disclose that your house is haunted, or you believe it's haunted? A. Do you have to disclose that there was a murder or terrible crime? B. What are the rules? And right now, it is a very fluid situation.
Would you buy a haunted house, though? Would you buy stigmatized property?
Would I? No.
Yeah, I would. Why not? I'd rent it out and see what happens.
Renting it out, maybe.
Rent it out. Use them as the experiment.
Ghost hunters.
Just a couple people, really cheap. Be like the cheapest rental they could find, just to watch what happens. I know
Make a reality show out of it.
I know that's horrible of me to say, but wouldn't it be interesting to see as things moved along and progressed, the calls you get?
It more and more hysterical, and more frequent. So this story, it's called "The Ghosts of Pickering Trail," and it's a house in Pennsylvania, in a Philadelphia suburb. Very nice, upper middle class, big bucks. The woman and her two kids who bought it were actually leaving a house that just depressed them because her husband had died.
Oh boy!
There in California, so they picked up, and in order to escape that heaviness, that oppressive atmosphere that they felt in that house, and he had died of natural causes. It was a disease, but to escape that, they moved all the way across country. Two of her sisters were in that general vicinity. She wanted to be near them. She thought it'd be good for the kids. So they moved in, and things just got crazier and crazier. darker and darker. All three of them had a number of what they perceived to be, anyway, paranormal experiences, and just this really ugly heaviness hanging over things. And it was not disclosed that there had been a murder-suicide in this very house only a couple years before they moved in.
You know, I've lived in homes before where I found out later someone died, and that never bothered me. I never saw anything weird. I never experienced anything strange. I mean, you find out after the fact, you're like, oh, well, that stinks. Okay, oh well. And everybody at some point, my house is built in 1924. I guarantee you somewhere where it's not disclosed, someone died in this house. I'm sure of it. Positive of it. Just because the age.
So the question, though, is there a difference between someone just dying in a house of natural causes, which, if you go back, 100 years or less, like you just said, that's where most people died.
Yeah, they die at home.
You died at home. That was the norm. So is there a difference? Is there a psychological difference? Is there an emotional difference? Is there a value? Value difference?
I lived in, when I was a young guy and I was going to college and stuff, I lived in a house where I knew this happened. A kid died. A guy died of alcohol poisoning. And I lived there because I was the next tenant right after he died. And it was cheap. I needed a place to live. You know, when you're poor, early 20-something, you don't care. Just give me a place to live. You know, and so I did rent this. And I'll never forget living in this place. The weirdest things would happen. My radio would turn on by itself. The TV would turn channels. The cupboard doors would open. Things like that. So I think this kid, personally, didn't believe or didn't know he was dead because he was so young. There's no reason for him to die other than being stupid and drinking himself to death. I don't think he knew he was dead. But once in a while, weird things, like I said, would happen. But nothing dark or...
You didn't feel threatened.
No, it was just like... I knew I was living with this thing. You know what I mean? It was just so obvious he was around because you just felt it, you know, as if there's another presence sitting in the living room with you. Nothing bad ever happened. Not to say that it can't happen, but in my experience, even if somebody does die and might get angry about their death, which I think he was, that would explain why the cupboards are open and things are thrown out of the cupboards, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to turn their anger on you.
Right. I agree. And what's interesting about the story is it very meticulously, very granular, it's a long story, runs through all of the variations on stigmatized property and you know, runs the gamut from relatively light, such as your experience, although it certainly sounds like it was an experience.
It was weird. It was really
very,
weird.
very heavy, oppressive, let's face it, awful. And on the completely other end, while they're focused primarily on this one case, as I said, they also use it to kind of talk about the subject in general. So they talk about some of the really, really worst cases, like, for example, the Jeffrey Dahmer apartment. Did you hear what happened to his apartment?
Well, then they tear it down.
The neighbors bought the building and tore the whole thing down.
And they should. Ed Gein's house got tore down, or burnt down, rather. People don't like to keep that stuff hanging around.
No, it's just too much. It's just too ugly. And of course, time is also a factor. So that came into play in this case too, where it had only been 2 years, and the people who sold it to this woman and her kids did not, very expressly, did not disclose. Well, they made a point of not disclosing that this had happened only 2 years before.
Well, make sure everybody reads that, though, at Twitter at AM Haunted. Go over to Twitter, seek out AM Haunted, and read this story. You're going to be amazed. Now, tonight we have a really great guest on tap. Who do we have on tap tonight?
We have June Lundgren, very sweet woman who is a psychic medium, has lived with it her entire life, and she's also an author. She has a new book, a short book. And man, we love short books.
Oh, yeah, I love short books. Come on.
We love those short books.
I know. I got this one called America's Most Haunted. It was so long, man. It took forever to read. Oh, wait a minute. That was your book.
It's oppressive.
No, I love that book, too. But right after your Fox News, we'll be right back with you. And don't go anywhere, everyone. And sit back, relax, and you're going to hear what it's like to be a psychic medium.
News Radio, I'm Paul Stevens. America's 39th president says he's battling cancer. More live now from Washington with Fox News Radio's John Decker.
Former President Jimmy Carter, speaking at the Carter Center in Atlanta, said that a recent operation to remove cancer from his liver was successful.
They think they got it all there, but it's shown up now in 4 places in my brain, and it's likely to show up other places in my body as the scans detect it in the future.
Carter, who's 90, will now undergo 4 chemotherapy sessions to address the melanoma spots in his brain, with the first one this afternoon. He says that he's ready to meet this challenge, and for the first time in his life, he's taking time away from his humanitarian work. Paul?
John, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, elected in January, says he's submitting his resignation to the country's president, clearing the way for early elections on September 20th. Tsipras effectively losing his parliamentary majority after hardliners in his Syriza party rebelled, opposing a bailout plan struck with international lenders. White House promising federal help now as crews continue battling western wildfires. More live now with Fox News Radio's Jessica Rosenthal.
Nearly 30 large uncontained fires are burning in Oregon and Washington alone, with 700,000 acres burned. Northwest Coordination Center spokeswoman Kashari Eagle says it's hot and dry, and the winds today are making things much worse.
The fire that is near Chelan, which continues to have new areas put into level 3 mandatory evacuations, that forecast in that general area was for 30-mile-an-hour down lake winds.
In north central Washington, 3 firefighters were killed yesterday when flames overtook them after a vehicle accident. 4 other firefighters were injured, Paul.
Jessica, what was Tropical Storm Danny, now the first hurricane of the 2015 Atlantic season. Midday Wall Street, the Dow was down 196 points. You're listening to Fox News Radio, fair and balanced. The Islamic State group claiming a responsibility for a massive car bomb in Cairo. More live from Jerusalem. Fox News Radio's Jessica Gallagher.
Paul, the National Security Building was targeted in a residential neighborhood of Cairo. The massive explosion leaving gaping holes exposing the offices of the building. At least 29 people were hurt. 11 of them were soldiers and police. The engine of the car was apparently used in the attack. It landed on the other side of the street. ISIS claimed responsibility, saying the blast was to avenge the execution of 6 convicted militants in May. A similar claim of responsibility came last month after a bombing in Cairo outside the Italian consulate, Paul.
Jessica, convicted killer David Sweat, who escaped from a maximum security prison in northern New York, arraigned today on criminal charges stemming from that breakout. A judge entering a not guilty plea for Sweat at that arraignment. Sweat escaping back on June 6 from the Clinton Correctional Facility with fellow inmate Richard Matt. Matt shot and killed on June 26th. Sweat shot and captured a couple of days later. Big-time pro athletes making even more money using social media.
A single tweet from LeBron James is worth about $140,000. Tops among pro athletes, according to Open Doors, which sells digital and social media endorsements for athletes. Oklahoma City Thunder forward Kevin Durant is second at $66,000, but most players come in much cheaper, $1,000, perhaps $2,500 per tweet. The NFL is using Open Doors to operate a platform so small business owners can pay for Twitter endorsements. Philadelphia Eagles linebacker Emmanuel Acho joined after learning the power of social media when a Virginia teen asked him to go to prom. He told her she needed to get 10,000 retweets.
Crazy enough, she had 15,000 in 3 hours.
So far, the most expensive tweet sold was $20,000 during last year's NFL playoffs. Chris Honig, Fox News Radio.
Thousands of migrants reaching Greece's main port near Athens today, adding to roughly 160,000 migrants who've arrived in the country since January. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News Radio.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Along with me is Mr. Eric Olson. And Eric, who do we have on tap tonight, man?
We have June Lundgren, who is a fascinating psychic medium. She's had the gift or the curse, depending on your perspective, her entire life. And it was developed and encouraged by her grandmother. But I don't want to tell her tale. We want her to tell her tale.
Hey, June, welcome to After Hours AM.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime. Hey, I was reading your book. I gotta say, it's a good book. It's not long either, and that's another selling point for this guy because my ADD kicks in. And so it was just the right amount of reading. But you sure pack a lot of information into that reading, though.
That's what I tried to do. Over, the last 50 years, people have asked me all kinds of questions about the dark side and, what it's really about, how to tell the difference between one and another, and how to tell whether it's a earthbound haunting or whether it's a demonic. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to put it into a book, condense it, and give people the meat of the situation.
Well, how does one go about knowing the difference between a demonic and, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill haunting, because I don't believe any haunting is run-of-the-mill, but how does somebody go about discerning the two?
A demonic, an earthbound haunting, shall we say, is an earthbound spirit will make you feel cold spots, a cool breeze, chills, make your hair stand up the back of your neck and arms and everything else. And that's cool. I can deal with that. And then you have the demonics. They make you feel cold on the inside. It's like the core of your body has gone cold. Mm-hmm. And you may have a sick feeling in the pit of your stomach. You can feel nauseated, start sweating. You can, throwing up. A lot of people throw up, and the smell of sulfur, rotting meat, things like that.
That doesn't sound
That's
pleasant.
all demonic.
Yeah, it doesn't sound pleasant at all, especially.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to leave.
Yeah, I'd be like,
yeah, it's not very fun.
No, it doesn't sound like it's fun at all. But now you've had this gift, like we said at the top, your whole entire life, and was it hard coming out as a psychic medium, or did you have a lot of guidance along the way?
It was the first 5 years my grandmother raised me, and so she had gifts, and the women in our family back to the 1600s all have gifts. And she taught me when I was with her for the first 5 years how to tell the good ones from the bad ones, and how to tell if they're lying to you, things like that. And that was really great. And then I went back to live with my mother and stepfather, and it was not a good thing because my mother was bipolar, and so it was a case of, I don't want you talking to anything, you're lying, so you had to keep it in. And I kept it in for a lot of years. I would get prophetic dreams, and I dreamt that my grandfather was going to die in April. I was at outdoor school, my first night there. My grandfather came to me and said, I'm not going to be with you. I'm going to be leaving, and you'll be okay. And that was April, and then he died in September. I talked to my grandmother about it, and after he died, and she said, he was just trying to make you understand that he's not going to be there with you, but then he'll be watching out for you while he's on the other side. And for me, that was my first death in the family. I had never had anybody die before then. And of course, it was the closest person to me.
Mm-hmm. That would have been so hard at that age, trying to digest that.
I was 9 years old when he died, and
because you don't have those tools as of adults. We we still don't have the correct tools to deal with that, but we hope we have a better skill set than at 9.
One thing about it though is like my grandma said, listen, you're not losing him because you'll be able to see him all the time, and sure enough, I can see him all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I graduated from high school and I left for the military. I joined the military when I was 17, left for active duty when I was 18. And I spent 2 years in the Army and 3 in the Air Force. And during that time, life took over. You're too busy. You're too, preoccupied.
Sure.
And then when I got out, things slowed down. And that's when I moved out on my own and started, conversing more with my grandmother and learning more and more about how to protect myself, how to tell the good from the bad, what to do to help people, things like that. I increased my abilities. I tried everything, psychometry, which seems to work real well for me. And then I can talk to the other side and everything. And then when I had my son in 1990, I had a bout of postpartum depression. And it was pretty intense. I felt that like there was nobody I could talk to. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I always talk to my sister, who's been dead for a long time. And she's one of my guardians, and my great-great-grandmother's the other one. And I asked God for help. And I don't know what I expected, but, nothing happened per se. And then I was talking to my sister, and I said, what does God think about this? I'm always asking questions. I probably drove him crazy. But she said, why don't you just talk to him and ask him? I'm like, hey, we're talking about God here. I'm not talking, how do you talk to God other than praying,
Sure.
And she said, just close your eyes, quiet your mind, and call his name, and he'll be there. And I thought to myself, can't be that simple. We mortals, we make it harder than it has to be.
Now, did you get the big thundering voice?
I did, actually.
June, you will do what I tell you.
No, he says, I'm here, child. And I'm like, okay. I felt like Bill Cosby, and when he does Noah. Am I on candid camera? But I said, prove it. I said, if you really are God, then prove to me that you are who you say you are. My grandmother told me over and over, you have to make the spirits, you have to try them. You have to make them prove who they are. And he says, I'm going to give you the gift of healing. And I'm like, okay. And I felt like I was on fire and started to shake real bad. And then I woke up on the floor. And I heard him say, it's done. You now have the gift of healing. And I'm like, but how do you do it? You didn't give me a manual or anything.
Sure.
And he's like, so he told me, step by step how to do it. And I said, well, how am I going to help people? How will I know who I need to help? And he says, don't worry about it. He said, I will bring people to you by word of mouth.
I would have got a tent and a guy that played an organ in the background and going, hey, come on up. You want to be healed? Little Johnny.
I know. I grew up with that. My grandma was Pentecostal. So it was like that sort of thing always embarrassed me.
Be healed! Ow, my head.
So I asked God one time, I said, why did you pick me? Why did you choose me? I said, I'm no better or no worse than anybody else. And he told me, people don't understand. He said, I judge you by your heart, not necessarily by your actions. He said, I chose you because your heart was good. He said, you always loved me. You never turned your back. Says you were busy, but you were always still a part of me. And that was nice to hear.
Wow, I've never had the opportunity to talk directly to God, and I would imagine it would have been quite intimidating at first to actually have the big guy on the line like, whoa, now what do I say?
Yeah, people say, well, what does he look like? And I said, well, I suppose God would be different looking for everybody, but for me, I see him just as an intense light. Every now and then I get an impression of a face, but for the most part, it's intense light, and it's like a feeling of peace and serenity and love fills me whenever I talk to him. And
I'm sorry. Do you hear an actual voice, or is it more of a clairvoyant kind of thing?
Oh, it's telepathic. I do all my communication telepathically. Yeah. Which
you hear the voice within your head, or you just get the information?
No, I hear the voice. It's like I'm talking to you right now.
Huh.
So it's kind of I don't know, some people think it's strange, but, I can hear everybody on the other side that way, including Jesus. And I try not to bug anybody because, they're busy. I don't feel like I'm important enough for them to, stop everything to answer my questions.
Well, I imagine God is a little on the busy side, keeping
Oh,
the
yeah.
universe together and all.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I know it kind of makes it sound like I'm telling a joke, but I imagine he is that busy to where you have to come to him before he'll come to you deal.
Yeah, that's true. I like to ask him how his day was because I think that nobody bothers to ask him. We had a long conversation one day, and I said, well, and how is your day? I said, nobody ever asks you how your day is. All we do is complain.
Sure. He's the big suggestion box in the sky.
Yeah, everybody's always complaining, so I try not to bother him at all. But every now and then I get stuck, and I have a question, and he never hesitates to answer me. So
interesting. No, I mean really interesting. I find that fascinating that you have that kind of connection.
It's startling and astonishing. I mean, it's like Morgan Freeman. I mean, let's face it. It's almost that conversational. How many people do you think have that kind of a conversational, personal relationship with any of these entities, let alone God? How unusual is that?
A lot more people than you think. Really.
I mean, what
a
would
lot
be
more
your
people
guess,
think.
like a percentage?
I'd say 1%.
That would be a lot of people.
It is a lot of people. It's like, it's kind of, I lost my train of thought here. I have people talking in my head. But I don't have, a lot of people say, why do you talk about God all the time? And I said, why not? Mm-hmm. I'm not ashamed of him.
No, I mean,
people may think I'm crazy, but let me tell you, the stuff he gives, the information he gives me, and the healing he does for people, I tell people, I don't do the healing. Mm-hmm. I'm only the conduit. He does all the healing. He's the one who says, yes, go see this person. Or he has them contact me.
Does everybody have the same ability to converse with God if we just choose to use it?
Yep. We do.
And
everyone does.
And you just go to him, like you'd said, with an open heart and an open mind, and it's something that can be done.
Yeah, so many people are stuck in their head instead of listening to their heart or their gut instinct. They'll talk themselves out of something. They'll say, oh, that's not logical. You can't do that, Even if there was God, you can't talk to him. But I think some of that has to do, I found out, in 1988, I died. I was in a motorcycle accident. I was riding my motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle. To teach my then husband-to-be how to ride a motorcycle. I had repoed a bike, and I was taking it over to teach him how to ride, to give him a lesson. And a woman ran a red light and hit me on the bike. And fortunately, there was a police officer a few cars back, but I got thrown about 50 feet and ended up against a brick wall. I did not have a helmet on, and I had no pulse for about 2 minutes.
Wow.
And during that time, I crossed to the other side. I ascended completely. And my grandparents were there, and there was this other entity called Michael, not the archangel, another one. And my grandmother and grandfather said, it's not your time. You can't stay. I said, yeah, I know. I don't want to stay. But Michael says, I want to show you something. And he took me by the hand, and we walked there. Mind you, this whole place is like one giant cloud bank, It's a cloud room.
Sure.
And he took me over to this where this bay window appeared. And he pointed down to the earth. And I saw everyone that was living at that time in the earth. I could see them all. And each person had a little tiny string that came up to where we were. And I asked him what that was. And he said, the ones that are lit up are the ones where people have made the soul connection, the connection with their soul. Mm-hmm. The ones that are dark are the ones that have not made that connection yet. And I said, well, if heaven is real, I said, is hell real? And he took my hand and he led me away from the window, and he waved his arm over the cloud floor, whatever it was, and opened up this pit. And the screaming was horrible. It was black, and hands were trying to reach up, and it was just horrible sound coming out of it, such pain and misery coming out of it, and anger, and hatred. And then he waved his arm, and it went back, closed back up. I said, okay, so that exists.
Wow, that would be kind of a scary sight, and it makes you wonder if hell's forever, or do you have to make the connection, then you're out of there?
Yeah, you have to, we'll get into that later. But, when you cross, they make you relive all of your lives, every single one you've ever lived, back to the core soul, who your soul belongs to. And everybody has a core soul. You know, you live all these lives, and all that information and all those experiences are in this core soul. And he says, this is who you were. It says this, you are Ariel, the archangel, the guardian of the throne of God. And I'm like, archangels don't come back. He starts laughing. He says, yes, you do. He says, what happened was you had been too long up here. He said you had grown cold. You had grown distant. You had forgotten how to care and have compassion for man. And all you ever wanted to do was kill demons, and that was your whole world. It's God made you come back. And you'll continue to come back and live lives until you learn how to care and have compassion.
Until you no longer have the taste of blood for demons in your mouth. Come on, you got.
Yeah, that's not likely to happen, but yeah, she still does that.
Very interesting.
I am compassionate.
Well, yeah, and that whole instance where you went up to heaven and you were able to see things as it were. I mean, I gotta admit it's kind of it takes me aback just a bit. That's not how things have been explained to me once in a while by other guests. So there's a lot of conjecture, and I guess we all go with our own beliefs sometimes.
Yeah, mine was a little bit different because of that, and when I came back, with the police officer hanging over me, still trying to find a pulse, it took me a long time to accept it, because it's like you're not told every day that this sort of thing, that your soul belongs to an archangel, and you're like, so I put it away from me for a number of years because I couldn't deal with it. Mm-hmm. And it's only been the last 15 years that I've finally decided, I really need to deal with it. I need to understand it. And so Michael, the archangel, and I guess we're pretty much inseparable. We've been around in all our lives together. He was Gabriel, Raphael, and Ariel, and Michael were what they call avenging angels. It's like Michael explained it to me one day. He says, it's like your elite sniper of the angel world. So we go around killing demons.
Well, it's a good work if you can get it.
Yeah, and they evidently love to do it, because whenever I go and remove a demon, it is Michael, at least Michael's with me, if not Gabe as well. I mean, they'd like, bring it on. I'm like, sure. Okay.
It's like an episode of Supernatural.
Oh, yeah, I remember that show. I never watch it, so I used to watch it a long time ago.
It's amazing. It
got so far out, though.
Oh, yeah. But the kind of the core mythos really does revolve around a lot of the things that you're talking about, quite seriously. It is amazing. So did you perceive this afterlife or this other realm? Did you perceive this to be Christian, or is Christianity just...
It's a man-made thing.
A man-made thing. That was a good way of putting it.
Yeah. That's why I put in my first book, A Medium's Guide to the Paranormal. Because God says, I want you to write a book, and I want you to put down some core subjects. And he said, you need to write it. And I'm like, really? Come on. And he says, no, I want you to write it. He says, I want people to understand. I do hear them. I do hear their prayers. I know what they want, but that's not necessarily what they need. He says, I give you what you need.
Kind of like the old Rolling Stones song.
Yep.
Don't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you find what you need.
Well, that brings up, just to interject for a moment, and I'm sorry to do that, but I was thinking a little bit earlier, is the healing, the gift of healing, it really kind of brings up philosophical issues. You know, in other words, why does God want you to heal some people at some times, but not others at other times? In other words, why does God allow things to occur that need to be healed? What is the purpose of that?
Okay, to answer that, you have to understand about our contracts. Before we even come down here, we decide when we're going to come into the world, when we're going to leave the world, and the method in which we leave the world, and what we want to experience during this time. I know it sounds strange, but when you're over there, you're thinking, okay, well, I've never died getting hit by a truck. So I think in this lifetime, I'm going to get hit by a truck and die. I want to know how that feels. I mean, really, I'm not kidding you. That's how it is. And you think to yourself, oh my God, what kind of idiot would want to do that?
Yeah.
But they don't think about the pain. They don't think about the people left behind. It's all about the experience. God told me one time, he says, you know what? The secret of life is it's all about the experience. You want to experience things that you've never experienced before.
Yeah, but I mean, to check out by getting hit by a truck, just for one instance. I mean,
or to battle cancer, to have cancer and battle it.
Well, I saw that firsthand. My own father dying of cancer. I mean, my gosh, who would ever want to go through that?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. When you're on the other side, those things do not occur to you. They don't really equate.
Okay, but
you're on the other
I gotta ask then, if Christianity is a man-made thing, well, where does sin fall into all this then?
Yeah, I've asked him about that a few times, and I'm like, because we talk about sinners and stuff like that, and he told me one time, he said, the Bible, the information in the Bible, the Old Testament was written for the people of that day. He said it was back then, he said it's black is black and white is white, and there was no shades of gray. You were either good or you were bad. There was no sort of bad person or whatever, or maybe just a little bad. He said that when Jesus came down, he's brought a different philosophy. He brought turn the other cheek, and not everybody is bad. And that a sin is kind of in the eye of the beholder. God says, because I asked him, I said, I've screwed up plenty of times in my lifetime. I'm a sinner. And he says, it's what you do. Did you hurt anybody when you sinned? I said, no. He said, did you kill anybody when you sinned? I said, no. He said, that's what it's all about. If you don't hurt anyone, you don't kill anyone, you don't cause a lot of pain to anyone on purpose, then he says, if you did any of those things, he said, I would consider that a sin. He said, but really, it takes a lot to get him mad, and it takes a lot for you to be, shall we say, cast down. Hitler, guess where he went?
Well, I would hope he's in the pit.
He's kind of the poster boy,
Yeah, but he was influenced. Him and Himmler and Rommel were influenced by demons.
Well, they did study the occult quite a bit, all three of them.
And Hitler, in his younger years, was really, really intensely into the dark arts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It just, because me growing up a good Lutheran boy, we were taught that God, Jesus, came, he died for our sins, so therefore all of our sins, as long as we repent, are all forgiven.
Not always 100% true, in the way that Hitler and Rommel and Himmler, they were influenced by, there was one old demon. I call them the old ones. They're the ones that have been around forever. They're kind of like the archangels. They've been around forever. They're strong. they rarely come to Earth. They rarely bother with us because we're not worth their time. But there was an old demon attached to Hitler, and there were 2 lesser demons attached to the other 2, influencing them. And I asked him, I said, well, what happened to everybody? He said they were cast down, and the demon, the old one, was destroyed by Ariel. What happens is you get a demon that does that much damage, genocide, basically, and they're captured and brought before God, and God pronounces sentence. Most of the time, if don't do anything that bad, they're like just sent back down there. But these ones were so heinous, their crimes were so heinous that they were, it's Ezekiel is the one who determines who does the deed after God pronounces judgment.
Okay.
And so he pronounced judgment, and Ezekiel chose Ariel to destroy it. And Michael gave me the vision of what happened when this thing was destroyed. And she just, struggled with it for a few minutes and then drew out a sword type. I want to say it's like a sword of, it almost looks like fire, but it's white light. And she sliced down it, and it dispersed into almost like sand.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, we're running long for break, so when we come back, more June Lundgren. You're going to find out more about June and also psychic medium work and everything else, so don't go anywhere. Be right back.
It's your ideas, work, and creativity that make it your yard. At Ace, we're here to help with hoses and sprinklers to nurture growth, gardening tools for the shape of good things to come, even the right fertilizer and bug killers to make the grass a little greener. You'll find it all now at Ace, your place, with everything you need for your yard, plus helpful advice, almost like we're right there. Ace,
the helpful place.
Hi, I'm Kip Parker.
And I'm Charlie Parker.
And we're the Parker Brothers. Hey, Charlie, what's missing from our game catalog?
I don't know, Kip. Tell me.
Well, you can't talk to the dead.
You sure as hell can.
That's why we got this brand new game called Ouija.
Ouija? Well, break that down for me.
Well, it's Wii because you're having a great time, and G, it's because G, aren't you having a blast because you're having a good time with the Wii.
It looks like it smelled like a Chinaman got caught in there.
Don't question it.
Well, Ouija, Kip, tell me about it.
Well, inside the package comes a flat board with all the letters of the alphabet, numbers from 0 to 9, and a yes-no written out by itself.
Well, that sounds like a lot of stuff going on.
It's got a lot of stuff going on indeed, Charlie. It also comes with this planchette which hovers over the letters the dead are trying to tell you.
Well, how does that work, Chip?
Well, you ask the question, and then the dead move your hands in the direction of the answers.
That sounds like a heck of a way to find Grandpa's slave money.
Turns out it was in the attic. But the questions don't have to be as serious as slavery. You can also find out if Sally's got a crush on you. The dead like to answer all sorts of trivial questions.
Feels like they'd have better things to do with their time, Kip.
No, lost souls are lost forever, and they're really glad to help.
Well, gee, Kip, can't you just get any sort of board with numbers and letters and talk to the dead?
The dead prefer quality like anybody else. Quality you can only find at Parker & Parker.
The Ouija board, brought to you by the Parker Brothers, available in both white and colored wallworks. Separate but equal savings.
Hello, this is Joel Sturgis, one of your hosts of After Hours AM, and I'm here to tell you all about Planet Paranormal. Planet Paranormal is the place you can hear every single After Hours AM podcast right from the very, very beginning, so tune in over at www.planetparanormal.com. That's right, planetparanormal.com. You'll be extremely glad you did.
You were dead! I saw you die! I was faking. I used ninja focus to slow my heart rate down. What are you doing? I'm burying you. I'm alive! I'm alive! You're waking the neighbors! No. Shut up! No! Now I'm gonna play your drum set.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. The views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, along with Mr. Eric Olson. Tonight we're talking about, with June Lundgren, about all things psychic, paranormal, and psychic mediums, and God talking to us. It's been really, the first half hour is blown right by, and very fascinating stuff. Now, when we left, you were talking about how we are all attached to God, of course, and we all, anyone that believes in God, or you know, I hesitate to use the word Christian, because you don't have to be a Christian to be attached to God. But, you know, we're all attached in that way. But now your mediumship, how do spirits contact you? How do you, is it all like as in like just a voice, or do you see them physically? How does that all work?
I see them with my third eye, my inner eye. And sometimes I see them physically. And when they talk to me, it's if they've been gone a while and they're advanced, it's quite easy to talk to them like we're talking now. But if they're not advanced and they have just been dead, you know, for a short period of time, then sometimes they don't know how to communicate very well. So they'll reference either places I've been, a movie I've seen, things that I would, you know, that I would recognize to help them get through to the person they need to get through to.
Okay. So there's a learning curve when we die.
I had one of my guides do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, what would be considered a long time dead?
On the other side, you know, you'd have to be dead for 30, 40 years to be advanced.
Oh, so there's a lot of time involved.
Yeah. On the other side, it's not really, doesn't really seem that long. But if you have people like my grandmother, who's been dead since the early 1700s, and my other grandmother, who's been dead for 30 years, and they, you know, I will ask them to help the newer spirits, newer souls to communicate. They'll go through them and ask questions or tell me what they need. And sometimes, you know, they'll get a hold of my guides. And, you know, the word gets around over there who can help. And so they'll come to me and say, hey, you know, I've got this soul that really needs some help, and can you help them? And every night Michael brings a line of them for me to help cross. I'm like, really, Michael? Just give me a break here.
You ever just want to take a night off? Be like, you know,
yes.
I'm good. Just leave me alone. You know, I'll talk to you guys later. Just let me chill. Now, you'd mentioned in the book, you touched on suicide. Now, is that something we also choose to experience on our way? So even suicide is chosen to be experienced.
Right, it's chosen. And the thing is, people, you know, the Catholic Church condemns people for suicide, you know, which is ridiculous because, you know, they said, oh, you're going to condemn your soul to hell for that. And for years, you know, you couldn't be buried on consecrated ground. But who are they to make that decision? Really, it's... God told me, he says, I do not condemn you to hell for leaving a life full of pain, full of suffering. He said, what kind of a God would I be, a person would I be, to condemn you to a life like that?
True. Very true.
He does not condemn.
Are there other gods or just one?
There's only one God that I know. He's the only one that ever talks to me, him and Jesus. So, you know, of course, the old ones and the archangels.
So no Zeus, no nothing like that, you know, from Greek mythology.
Oh, no, I studied Greek mythology.
There's no council of gods.
No.
You know, like Buddha hanging out with Muhammad and Jesus, and they're playing pinochle and whatnot.
Well, you know, Jesus was Buddha, so what's the difference? He was one and the same.
Really?
Yeah, that was one of his. He's been back many times. And,
who else?
Yeah, and he came back as a child during the Nazi occupation. He was in Auschwitz and died at 12 years old in Auschwitz. He was a young boy.
So wow.
He said I came back. My father said you need to go down and find out what's going on, and you know, experience it, and then come back and tell me what's going on.
He likes being Jewish.
Well, he was a Buddhist once.
He likes being Jewish. It must be the matzo balls he comes back for.
Yeah, no,
it's
it was
joking.
the cry of pain and suffering
Yeah.
from all those people.
No,
Ay, ay, ay.
I gotta ask though, if God had,
Go ahead.
If God had the power, why didn't he stop a Hitler? I mean, he obviously could. I mean, that wouldn't be no big thing for him. It'd be like killing a cockroach.
Right. And I've often thought, there are all kinds of questions I had, like why does God, let a child die, or a death that's so painful, or die of cancer, or be murdered. And it's all about what the soul wants to experience.
Yeah, we want to live about 4 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone choosing that. But then again, I'm not in that position.
Yeah, it's kind of infinitely makes sense when you cross and you look at those things and you think, okay, that's the reason why I chose to be here in this lifetime, or why I chose to live that life and get burned at the stake as a witch. Yeah, well, that's okay. But
I've been there, done that. Wasn't the
Yeah.
greatest time ever.
Awful question. Would you even choose to be aborted?
Well, I've asked God, I said, well, the soul, a lot of people claim the soul goes into the fetus the moment of conception. And I asked him about that. And he says it does not. The soul goes in and out of the fetus. It doesn't stay in there. It comes and goes. And then doesn't stay for good until the birth, if it chose to stay. If it chose not to stay, then the child would be born stillborn or die at birth.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting. Hey, before we get too much farther, since we're already down to our last 19 minutes, we haven't even mentioned once how people can get a hold of you, and especially your new book.
Yeah, my new book is called The Dark Side of the Paranormal. It explains about demons, the old ones, the minor demons, shadow people, earthbound negatives. Talks about what really protects you in the physical world and what doesn't protect you.
Well, shadow people. I've seen those critters out of the corner of my eye many a time. What the heck are they?
Shadow people are minions. They are creatures of, if you're ranking them, Lucifer comes first, then the old ones, the old demons, and then the lesser demons, and then the shadow people and the minions. So that's how they are in rank. They are connected to Lucifer the way we're connected to God.
So it's no big deal to see one then. Oh, look,
No.
shadow person. Huh.
Unlike demons, they rarely travel in packs. Demons there's always more than one demon. They never travel alone. Shadow people like their own territory, and they like to kill you slowly. They can kill you. They have been known to stop hearts. They'll drain the energy from you.
Oh, gee.
You'll have horrible nightmares.
Happy bunch there.
Yeah, but you can get rid of them. That's the thing. They're easier to get rid of than a demon is.
Just say, hey, get the heck out of here. I mean, would that work?
No, and neither will sage. But if you get the house blessed, sometimes it will work about 30% of the time. And the other 70% of the time it doesn't, then you have to have somebody like me go in and remove it. But
Wow.
it's a piece of cake considered to an old demon.
Well, I would imagine, and not to stray too far from your new book, but I gotta ask this question. Did God ever divulge to you whether there are space aliens? Are there aliens out there?
Yes, there are, and he doesn't like them.
But he created them.
No. That's different. To understand them, you have to understand where we came from originally. We were originally physical beings on another planet in a galaxy far, far away. And over time, we evolved into pure energy. And once we all evolved and were pure energy, we traveled all the different galaxies and everything, seeing all there was to see, hearing all there was to hear. And we traveled for, thousands of years. And then one day they decided, we're tired of this. We're tired of traveling. We've seen everything. We want to have a physical body again. We want to have children. We want to know, physical love. And so that's what started the division between, whatever you want to call it, heaven and hell, the dark and the light. Lucifer and his followers did not want to have nothing to do with having a body and being subject to pain and age and injury, or, be stuck in a shell. They didn't want that. And so that's what started the whole war. And when Michael was the one who disarmed Lucifer, and Ariel was the one who disarmed Lucifer's son. And God told him, he says, I'm going to give you and your followers exactly what you want. You will never be able to have a physical body again. You will never be able to be reborn. And, and they were good with that. Like, yeah, we don't want to anyway. He says, but I'm going to, cast you into darkness. You will be away from the light. No more light for you. And at first they were fine with that. But over centuries and stuff, they have grown angry and resentful and full of hatred. And that's why they come down, that's why they cross over into the world and cause all kinds of problems for people.
Yeah, that's exactly why they show up. Because like you said, they can never have their own body again. And so...
Right, but that doesn't take possession of one.
Well, this is true. This is true.
But it's still not theirs.
No, it's not. Thank God.
Yeah.
It's not theirs, and there's ways to protect ourselves against it.
Right.
Well, that shows you how ugly and how literally cosmically destructive resentment and jealousy are.
Oh, yeah. Very destructive. It's just...
So now, who are these aliens, then?
They are people from... He says that... Because I asked him, because when I was pregnant with my son, I was laying on the couch in the living room, and we had a big picture window at that time. And it was a beautiful, star-filled night. And it's like, I saw something go zipping by and then do a 180 and just shot up. And I'm like, oh, right. No thanks. Don't come down here. Yeah, he doesn't like them. He has actually said that he is helping man. There, by the way, yes, there are alien ships. He has helped a few of those, shall we say, come to Earth, crash. So they are looking into it. The developments that we've had in technology over the last 50 years is because of that.
Interesting. I've always thought alien technology was somewhat why the explosion of the computer age.
Yeah, well, he could give us plenty of technology, because when we had, another physical form before we even came here, they were very sophisticated, very far above what we are. But he said you can't do it because you give it to people too much, too fast.
Mm-hmm. So this is the only Earth that he created?
Yes, the only one.
Wow, I would have thought with that kind of power, he might have, I just would have thought that he would have created more. Having
That's
that
what
kind
I
of
thought
ability.
too. But he's like, no. He said that we found a place for us.
Is the universe really as big as it appears to be through our science, or is that an illusion?
It's even bigger. It's even bigger.
Are there other dimensions?
Yes.
Do the other dimensions factor into this relationship between spirits and people, or are they entering our plane from completely non-material?
Well, there are different, what they call, people call them veils. There are 7 levels. It's kind of, if you've ever looked at an El Greco painting, he does, the heaven is up there, and then the earth is there, and then down below it is, the bad stuff. And it's kind of like that. You have the veil between the dark ones and the physical world. And then the veil between the physical world and the next plane up where, earthbound spirits are. And then there's the veil between them and the angelic realm.
No,
And then,
I don't mean to cut you off, but earthbound spirits, they hear because they're afraid of judgment.
some of them are afraid of judgment. I had, unfortunately, I don't go to graveyards, but I got stuck at a graveyard because, and, I managed to cross everybody over except one guy. And I said, well, what's your problem? Why aren't you wanting to cross over? And he's like, I've sinned. I said, so? He's like, I was on my, he was still stuck in his death state. He had blood down his face and everything. And he's holding his briefcase and stuff. And I said, well, he says, I was on my way to meet my lover. I was married. I was on my way to meet my lover. He was a Catholic.
Oh, he was on an affair. So he was afraid. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was afraid that he would be judged for
Ashley
that.
Madison.
Yeah, wouldn't he be judged for that, though? I mean, wouldn't that
You are, but it's kind of like nobody can berate you more than you.
Yeah.
You beat yourself up enough. I told him, I said, for God's sake, at least get out of your death state. You're driving me crazy. And he still hadn't got out of his death state before I left. But I told him, oh, well, come and see me when you get out of that.
Well, what would this soul have to fear, realistically?
Nothing. What happens, you cross over, you're made to relive your life through your eyes and the eyes of all those that you came in contact with during that lifetime. And so he was, he's Catholic. He gets stuck in that, God's, because adultery,
Yeah.
I'm going to be, going to hell for it.
Well, which a lot of people do believe, and I'm not advocate of that activity.
No.
But then again, I don't think anyone should be damned to hell for it either, because everybody makes mistakes.
Yep. You kind of spend a little bit of time in what I call limbo. It's, I liken it to, remember those old game shows where you have the silent booth where you couldn't hear anything. You're in that booth and you can't hear anything. You can't, that's the way it is, this limbo thing. You're like in a booth, glass booth, and you can't hear what anybody's saying, but you can see everything that's going on, and you can't do anything about it.
Wow. You're in timeout.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And there are angels that go through routinely and check on you and see if you have, repented, if you had, thought about what you'd done and the changes that you'd like to make. And, there are people that are there that have been there for hundreds of years.
Stuck in this little glass booth?
Yeah, Michael says they won't change, so they're going to stay there. But up there, you have to realize that's just a moment in time. Time does not exist up there.
Sure.
So they may have been there 100 of our years, but it's only like a minute or two up there.
That brings up a really good point. What is the ultimate reality of time? Is time real, or is it only how we experience things?
It's how we perceive it and how we experience it. Time is actually, it's not linear. Like people think that time is linear. You go in one direction and that's it.
Yeah.
But when you're on the other side, you can travel in both directions.
Huh. So you can go back, forth, up, down.
You cannot. You can see it. It's like watching a movie. Rewinding it. You can see it, but you cannot interact with it because that time has already come and gone. But that doesn't mean that you can't.
You can't be like
it.
You can't be like Sam from Quantum Leap and
no,
put
darn
back
it.
right.
That'd be cool.
Once went wrong.
Yeah, darn it.
Because I'd love to build a time machine to stop a lot of things.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Some of the people I know now, I like to find their parents beforehand.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't know what you're going to be doing here, but I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
You
don't do it.
Don't hook up with that person. All right, just move along.
Yeah. There's a few I'd like to tell that too.
But
so it's like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yeah, there you go, Doctor. I'm a Whovian. Yes.
I just saw that. I just saw Blink. You see that they're replaying kind of the great hits.
Yep.
Leading up to the new season.
Oh yeah, my son and I are great Whovians.
Oh, Doctor Who? I've never watched the show.
Oh my gosh, awesome.
That was the time.
Never seen it. Never.
That was a great time because for the next, I think it's 5 weeks,
Yeah.
They're playing like 2 greatest hits episodes from about the last 10 years.
I know a lot of people will hate me for this, but I've never been a fan of British TV. And
well, I haven't either, but I really like Doctor Who.
Yeah, I'm.
It's kind of a whole different thing.
I'll have to
I
sit
gotta tell
down.
you, I had never really watched. I'd caught a little bit here, a little bit there. It seemed all twee and British and whatnot. But last season, I watched the whole thing, and I really got hooked.
No, I'll have to do that one day. When I find myself a little bit of time, I will have to sit down and watch a little Doctor Who. I hear it is good, though. I hear
it really
worth
is.
watching.
My husband, my son first got into it back in when they brought it back again in 2008 or something like that.
Okay.
My husband goes, "Oh, well, my doctor is Tom Baker." Come to find out, my husband watched it in the 60s. But I'm like, oh.
I mean, but getting back to, like your book and stuff and how God really, really operates. I mean, I guess I have to ask, why does he allow evil to run amok on this plane? Why doesn't he just stomp it out? Yeah, I mean, because he could. He could destroy every demon if he decided to.
That's true, he could. The thing is, free will. 2 words, free will.
But here lies my question then, and this is a question that's always plagued me. Maybe you can answer it. Now, we have free will, and part of free will is sinning. How can you have free will if you have to pay for it later?
Because you have free will here, and you have free will over there. You don't have to come back. You don't have to live life over and over again. You can stay up there. You don't have to ever come back if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way free will plays in over there. And if you screw up and you mess up in the lifetime and you do bad things, you're going to pay for it over there. You're going to be in, the timeout box.
The phone booth, yeah.
And you're going to have to, think about what you did, pay the consequences. You'll have to make up for it by, helping other people as a guardian or a guide or what have you.
So basically, you get there and God says, go in the corner.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You've been bad.
You
go
screwed
in the
up
corner.
big time,
I don't want you go to your room and you think about what you did.
Yeah, sort of. And if you're really bad, it's even worse.
What's that, Eric?
I thought that was crap.
What?
This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. It will not.
No, it won't.
So.
It's going to hurt you more than it does me.
Yeah.
Well, that is true.
It's so interesting how your worldview that you are bringing to us, it's fascinating to me, the parts that are so, in a sense, conventional. In other words, affirming kind of generally held beliefs, whether it's Christianity or let's just say the world's major religions, because you have the whole reincarnation aspect as well, so you're certainly blending into Eastern religion as well. But then there are elements that really deviate from the common perception and common sort of broadly speaking worldview. So it's fascinating to me what does and does not fit into common perceptions and what's different about it. And the way you describe it is so very specific and it's very distinct and the lines are clear. They're not really very blurry at all. And it's as though you are literally describing a scene that you are looking at as you're describing it in great detail. And
it is, because I see it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's still amazing to someone who doesn't have that.
It is very amazing. But we come to the end of another show. I'd like to thank Miss Lundgren for coming on the show.
How can they get a hold of you?
You can contact me through my website, www.mysticconnections.org. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter under June Lundgren.
All right, everyone, take a look. get a hold of June. And remember, love each other, take care of each other, and more than, look into things a little bit further. You just never know what you're going to find. But until next time, I'm Joel Sturgis and
Eric Olson.
Take care. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.